I check the Wi-Fi, make sure it's not acting up. It was acting terrible yesterday. All right, so we gotta start this off by saying there will be spoilers. Please do not watch this stream if you have not seen the show and don't want to have details of it revealed. Like I am so sick and tired of oh my god you now I know what happened because I watched your thing. So please just go and watch the show. Or if you don't care about spoilers, then proceed. I just don't want to be blamed for another thing that's out of my control. Especially since I'm not doing this like a lot of people where I show screenshots and clips and the rest of that to go along with the you know stuff of me just speaking. So I was never the biggest fan of Falcon in the MCU films. I thought he was all right in both Civil War and Winter Soldier, respectively the two Captain America films he appeared in. And in both Infinity War and Endgame, him and Bucky don't even really get to do anything at all because of how large the cast is and how many other characters have a more central purpose to the plot. Um, so to me, they felt like Captain America sidekicks, and they also felt very underutilized, which really sucks because again, I don't have a problem with either of the characters or their actors. So when I found out they were getting their own show, I probably I wasn't the most excited for this because again, I didn't really have that much of a rapport with the characters, but I was like cautiously optimistic. I said, all right, well, we'll just see what happens and go from there. Um, this show has a misleading title. It's called Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I think it's way more about Falcon than Winter Soldier. He has a much bigger arc, and really after the I'd say second episode, we don't get as much of a focus on Bucky and his backstory and just the things that affect him. Like we get little nuggets of stuff, but it's nowhere near as massive as Falcons. So let's start with episode one. The strangest part of the whole pilot episode, which caused a lot of people to say they believe the show should just been released as a full 6 hour film, basically, is that Bucky and Sam don't speak to each other in the entire thing. We have this mission with Sam, and we have also the scene where he talks to Rhodey after giving the shield to the government. And we have Bucky going to this therapy session and a little clip before that of him trying to speak to some lady in a car. And it's all, nice stuff. But it's a really, when you consider the fact the show's only 6 episodes in comparison with the 9 of WandaVision, it makes the fact that they don't speak to each other in that entire 40-minute pilot seem even stranger, like slower. Um, the two lead characters whose names are in the show not talking for the entire pilot. I thought that was, I didn't even notice it the first time I watched the episode. I just thought about it. I said, did they actually speak? Because the show's built around their dynamic. So having an episode where they don't talk but both appear just to me was strange. But I enjoyed it for what it was. It set up some, it did what the pilot's supposed to do. It sets up all of the, or at least a solid chunk of what we can expect from upcoming episodes. The second one probably is I'd say I'd like the second one much more than the first one. We're introduced to the new Captain America, John Walker, who in that episode, the show did a decent job of portraying as a person that knows they have big shoes to fill by taking on this mantle that is acclaimed, while also showing that he has a bit of arrogance. So when they have the scene where he admits, where he tells Bucky and Sam to stay out of his way after they leave the building, that's the first sign of him being this kind of aggressive type person. Like I don't think you would see Steve make a like a threat like that, especially if it's just if someone says I'm not going to work with you, but we're going to try to get to the same goal of ending something. I really like the scene where they meet the Flag Smashers for the first time. I didn't like that I was indifferent to the fact that they gender flipped. It's Carl Morgenthau who's the Flag Smasher in the comics. I never really cared that much for that character, so I wasn't that bothered by it. But it was a surprise when you see his counterpart in the show, who's renamed Carly, just smack Bucky out off the moving vehicle. And that's my favorite part of the episode was probably when it was Bucky and Sam walking, and they have Battlestar and John on the little truck, just driving kind of slow as the two of them are walking. Like, hey, we could work together, and they're they're just not falling for it, or they won't do it. It's just little stuff like that I always appreciate because it's a character moment that is couched in the superhero stuff. Because a lot of I watched one person's review of the show and they said that the problem with Bucky in the show is that he usually only just fights or has like a one liner or something, which while he's not as focused on as Sam after the second episode, I would still say that's not entirely true to me. I think because of the massive arc that Sam has to undergo to get us from Civil War to the announced Captain America 4, it makes a lot of sense that it would appear that way to someone else. But I think a big reason why that person felt that way is because after the second episode, we don't see Bucky go to his therapist anymore, outside of that little tiny clip in the sixth one. So from that point forward, when he has some kind of issue or thing that revolves around his background, it's always having to do with whatever the current situation is. So his character arc is never given. What's a way of saying it? So in episodes after the second one, we see Sam go back to his sister and his nephews. And again, those kinds of things, along with him going to see Isaiah, and I actually left that out of me recounting episode 2, but just those further experiences with those characters after the second episode make it much more apparent that there's development of Sam and kind of a backgrounding of Bucky, which really sucks because I like the stuff in the first two. I like the idea of this super soldier going to a therapist that kind of reins him in. So, and again, they do try to do something in the sixth one. We'll get to that later. But yeah, the thing with Bradley was really interesting because that's another character from the comics that I didn't expect to see in this show at all. A lot of people really like that performance, even though it's a little itty bitty scene of the episode, which is again another problem I have with the show, that it has a lot of ideas, but even with a 6-hour period, or I guess what's it, 4 or 5 hours, if you cut the credits out of the episodes, it still doesn't feel like it has enough time to really breathe, to explore these types of things, these ideas that are interesting, but there's not enough leeway given to it. Bradley, for example, has about, I think, 4 scenes in the entire show, which again all serve a purpose. But if this were, let's say, a 10 episode or 11 episode season, I could have easily seen them doing either a flashback or something that was more fulfilling towards that character. Like as he exists, it's mostly just to serve the arc of another character, which again is not a problem, but it's still one of those things where you do a show because you want to give certain stuff more time to breathe and develop, and it just doesn't work because again, the show is basically 2 movies fused together. So that's another problem I had with the length of this series. Now, when you go to episode 3, that's where I say things start getting a little bit more. It was interesting before, especially 2, but that's where we get the rising action a little bit. The opening scene, or it's one of the first scenes where we have Walker and Battlestar confronting the guy, and the guy spits in his face like, "Do you know who I am?" And this is another, because I rewatched the whole season after the 6th episode came out. I was watching the weekly before, but I wanted to make sure I had all my stuff prepped out. This is another one of the foreshadowing scenes. All right, well, I'm trying to speak about this. This was another one of the foreshadowing scenes of Walker's like rage, of him having a more loose cannon temper than Steve does, and it's something that I didn't pay that much attention to, and because again, it's developing, and you don't really get to it's just what's a way of saying it? It kind of reminds me of when people said in Infinity War, "Oh, it was so sweet that Doctor Strange gave up the Infinity Stone to save Tony's life after saying that he wouldn't." That was such amazing character development. Then you find out in Endgame that there's the reason he gave the stone is because he saw the future where he would. Yeah, so it's not one of those things where after you've rewatched it, it makes more sense or it has a different meaning. But anyways, the Zemo stuff I thought was great. Like during Civil War, my problem with him was that he was to me unrecognizable from his character in the comics. So his dad was a villain, for example. He wears this purple sack over his head. He's kind of like it's kind of like Norman and Harry Osborn, where it's father son antagonist. And then after the father dies, the son takes up the mantle. And in the films, as far as we can tell, his dad was a normal guy. So they already removed that core aspect of his backstory to give him some more weight as a character. This is referring back to Civil War, where we find out that his family died during Age of Ultron, off screen. And here they finally give him the purple sack, which again I understand where people want to do their whole realism thing, but it's a recognizable feature of the character, and it allows me to remember, oh yeah, that's supposed to be the same one that is in the comics, or at least the same character. Yeah, for some reason the MCU has a big problem with masks. Like I don't know what it is. They just hate masks. That's why everybody knows everyone's identity. I guess that's a problem that started with the first Iron Man. They just threw secret identities out the window. Which again I can understand for certain characters, but when it's for everybody, I'm rolling my eyes. What else is there to really discuss? Yeah, so the Zemo stuff was good. The Sharon stuff was kind of similar to that, where I never really cared about her character because her aunt was much more interesting to me and had, I think, better chemistry with Steve. And because of the time skip, they couldn't use her anymore, so they had to put in her a poor man's version of her with her niece, who barely was used in either Civil War or Winter Soldier. She has like 2 or 3 scenes in each of those films, which I remember for Civil War, they had her in the posters fighting with Captain America's team, and that's another one of those posters that tricks you, where they show a character on the poster to make you think they're gonna have some big role and they don't do anything. It was just like that. So I was glad they brought her back and actually did something interesting. The whole dynamic of you do this favor for Cap, where you get his shield for him, and then you're branded an enemy of the state. And then for 5 years after being on the run and him being around in those 5 years, that period between Infinity War and excuse me, there's a 2-year period between Civil War and Infinity War, and then there's a 5-year period between Infinity War and Endgame. But she supposedly was killed by the snap, so there's a 2-year period where she's on the run, and Captain America doesn't do a single thing to assist her whatsoever. And there were a lot of people who were saying this was character assassination of Steve, but you could easily interpret it as him not knowing where she was, because she mentioned not being in contact with her own family. So I don't really see it as a bad thing. I think it's done more so to service her as being a character that's different from just being a carbon copy of her aunt. So that's the position I take. You're free to disagree if you'd like. No, I really like that fight scene in the. I don't even know what that place was. It's after they confront the man who made the super soldier serum, and he gets killed by Zemo, and they have this big fight that goes on with these different minions or whatever. And my favorite part is is when they get in the car, and it's a callback to Civil War with Sam, where Sam was in the front and Bucky was in the back, and they asked him to move his seat up, and he said no. And then Bucky's in the front, and Sam says, "You're not going to move your seat up, are you?" And then Bucky says no, and they drive off. I remember that scene from Civil War because like the whole theater, I think that was probably the funniest joke in the whole movie. Like the whole theater burst out in laughter. So it was nice to see that be given some homage. That's why I was saying that the show to me felt like Captain America 4 without Captain America, because all the characters from the latter two films, like who were basically either didn't appear at all in the Avengers stuff, or were there for like little itty bitty pieces of time, actually get to show up and do stuff here. It's really nice. What else was I gonna say? I like that they do show Walker and Battlestar going to like basically talking about whether it was Sam and Bucky that did something to get Zemo out. You know, it shows they're competent. They know those two are also trying to find the same leads. So that was also a nice little scene. I think we're pretty much done with three. Three is probably my third favorite episode. Um, and you can make the argument it's my second favorite. I switch between it and five back and forth because I don't really have a what's the way of saying it. Any specific order? Like they're both great to me. I don't really. I just go back and forth. That's the best way to put it. So it was nice. Give me a second as I load this thing on here. We get to episode 4 and how the insane mammoth that was. Because I have a lot of things to say about that one. That really is the only episode that just had me thoroughly entertained from start to finish. Which is not an insult to the other ones. It's just that there was so much in it that I was floored. It's crazy too because I always watch a lot of this stuff and just kind of, if I like what I see, I'll just say, oh, I really like this. But this is one of the few times where I actually kind of regretted that I don't have a bunch of people to talk to about this stuff, because just the things that were in it and a lot of the things I picked up, and um, you know, it's one of those things where if you experience something and you find it very good or great or whatever, and you want to talk to somebody else about it, you can't. Because a lot of people I know that even if they like Marvel, you know, don't watch the stuff that they've been putting out recently. So it was one of those situations. And I mentioned this to somebody, and they tried to flip it back on me by saying there are also things I'd like for you to watch so we could discuss. Like, sir, I complained about you not watching one thing. You've talked about 5, 6, 7, 8 different things I don't watch that you've watched. So it's it's not the same. Yeah, they were saying they were waiting for the show to be over to discuss it, like, or to watch it rather. I just, you know, that's just a little pet peeve I have where like you excuse people or accept people not watching what you like, and then they try to get you to see what they like. So it's that whole thing of how unfair a lot of these relationships are. You have to see everything these other people like, but they don't have to see anything you like. All right, let's get into this episode. So the end of episode 3 has Ao show up, which is one of the Dora Milaje guards from Black Panther. Um, a lot of people mistook her for Okoye, I think her name is, the main guard. So because they're both bald, and you know, it happens. A lot of people just they think of someone from Wakanda that's bald, they think of Okoye. And the episode starts with this flashback I really like, which is Bucky being cleared of his Winter Soldier programming. And he's just bawling and crying his eyes out, and you get these flashbacks. I found the whole sequence to be very. It's probably my top 3 scenes of the whole show. Like it's cathartic if you've seen, you know, Winter Soldier and Civil War and just like that. Like it's basically if you watch those 2 films and then this, and arguably if you see the first Avenger as well, because Bucky's in that too. It's this background. Well, excuse me. It's a character arc for Bucky. It's kind of like with how you had Mark Ruffalo talk about how even though there was no Hulk movie, you could look at Thor Ragnarok, Infinity War, and Endgame as a Hulk trilogy. It's like because of just the arc that his character goes through. It's the same thing with Bucky, except his name is actually in two of those installments. But I just thought it was so nice to see that finally be over. And the actor really sold it with his performance. So it was a really nice scene, in my opinion. Anyways, he explains they got Zemo out of prison because they need his help with the super soldier clowns, terrorists running around. She gives him, I think, 8 hours, and then he goes back and relays this to Sam and Zemo. And then they find out about some funeral. So Zemo finds a way of finding out where the funeral is, and it's one of the creepiest things in any comic book movie ever, where you give these little kids candy and then they decide to tell you information. Walker and Battlestar finally catch up to Bucky and Sam, and then this is where they reveal their plans to each other. And I really like Walker's reaction to seeing Zemo go up and give the little girl the money, and then she takes him to where the funeral is. Like, what the hell? That's the reaction anybody who's out of the loop would have to seeing this villain give this child some money so she can lead them to a funeral. So at the funeral, Sam is able to convince Walker to give him 10 minutes to talk to Carly alone. And this is one of the issues I have with the show, which is that sympathetic villains are not a bad thing, but again, the sympathy can only go so far. So if you have a villain who is going around killing various people with no regard for whether she killed them or not, and that's what Carly does, she admits that she doesn't care and she would kill them again. She says it and then tries to blame Sam for making her sound like she's evil. It's hard to get me as an audience member to actually believe this character is someone who can be good or change or anything, because they're not showing any remorse. So that's probably the weakest part of the episode for me. Again, the show does a lot of that, where they try to just keep making this antagonist someone that can be reformed as she goes around killing people. So Walker busts up the meeting, and Carly's able to escape, and then Zemo's able to finally find where she is, and he also finds some of the super soldier serum, and he shoots her repeatedly, and then smashes up a bunch of different parts of the serum except for one dose of it. They're in these little containers with blue juice inside of them, and Walker knocks them out and puts one in his pocket. So then Zemo, Bucky, and Sam go back to the apartment that they're staying in and discuss what happened. And then Walker and Battlestar show up, and there's like a little tense interaction between Walker and Sam before this spear comes right in front of Walker's face, and the Dora Milaje show up and tell Bucky that time's up and to release Zemo to them. And then Walker tries to be nice, or he doesn't really take the warnings of Sam seriously, but he's still trying to not have a fight with them, and he puts his hand on Ao's shoulder, and they get into this big fight. And the fight is, again, another highlight for me, because just the way they knock him down, they hit him, and then he falls back into the spear. It's, oh my God. The only thing about that fight I felt a little bit bad for is Battlestar, because you could tell he's only getting involved because it's his partner, and he's just throughout the entire show, I never felt any animosity towards. He just seems as if he's trying to do a job, and he's not rude or mean to Sam or Bucky ever. In fact, he actually convinces. We'll talk about him later after the end of the episode, but the fight's really good. I love the part where while Bucky's watching it, while they're watching John and Battlestar fight the Dora Milaje, you have Zemo sipping his drink, and Bucky says, looking strong, John," as he's getting smacked around. I never thought they could make a fight where the protagonists are getting defeated actually entertaining, but it happened. So Sam convinces Bucky to get involved. Bucky tries to stop Ao, and then she undoes his, I guess the controls in his arm, and the arm falls off. And a lot of people took issue with this scene because they were saying it's like if you took a disabled person out of their chair. Um, I don't really like equating this with, because I that's why I said I really think when people read too much into this stuff, they start going into paths I don't like, where they try to equate a superhuman who has a metal arm that these people put in him with a disabled person. I just don't think it's the same thing. I think that's another one of those instances where people, let's go ahead and saying it, they're too soft for my taste. Like, just maybe if it were real life, but not in a show. I don't care. At least not enough to go, I can't believe you would do this to this person. That's like doing this to a disabled person. I don't agree. So the fight ends after they find out that Zemo has fled. And Walker is like traumatized by it because he was just defeated by people that weren't even super soldiers. Into my phone charging. Yeah, that was I love that fight. And you remember how the fight started, right? Where they hit him like repeatedly, and then he smacks into the same spear that missed him. So they even make their weapon that missed contribute to him losing. So he's traumatized. They go to this little, I guess it's a restaurant, and people are asking Walker for his autograph. And he has a conversation with Battlestar where he says, if you had the chance, would you take the super soldier serum? And Battlestar, is unknowingly acting as his moral conscience, and he says yes because it makes you more of who you are. And then he mentions Steve Rogers, Carly Morgenthau, and how these people had the same beliefs before taking the serum. And this is my memories are always hazy when I'm recounting the plot of stuff and just having to go off of there. I don't like when I don't have notes. It goes that way. But you have Carly call Sam's sister and give her the coordinates, and they have this line in the episode I really like, where she says to Carly, "My world doesn't matter to America." She's referring to Walker in the latter part of this. So why should I care about its mascot? And it's like a social commentary on how when you're destitute or poor or down on your luck or just screwed over, a lot of times the US seems apathetic to what you're experiencing, which I would totally agree with. But Carly sends her the coordinates and like makes this threat to her and her kids. And then it's at some point we find out they captured Battlestar, and Sam goes to meet with her, and Bucky comes with him, and then they have a conversation where she tries to claim that she would never hurt his family, which I don't even know if we should believe after all the people we've seen her kill throughout the show already. But Sharon gives some information to the dynamic duo of Bucky and Sam, and they leave to go and intercept Walker as he's battling different flag smashers. Man, I gotta remember. So they have this big battle, and before this battle happens, Battlestar manages to free himself from his confinement. And I like the part where when they're trying to restrain Sam, one of the flag smashers, he uses the back of his I don't even know what you would call it, his wings. They have a fire that comes out, like it sets him up in the air. He uses that to get free. So during this fight, Walker is restrained by one of the flag smashers, and Carly comes up with a knife to stab him. Also, I should mention one of my favorite lines in the episode is when Walker questions what's with all the knives, because that was a common critique of the Captain America films where like all the villains have, all the like minor antagonists have knives. This is just a weapon that they all have. And none of the other antagonists from any of the other films just walk around with knives, like, or even their henchmen have it. So that was like nice little, meta commentary on just this overused weapon that everybody likes to have. So Carly comes up to stab him, and Battlestar comes out of nowhere after freeing himself and tackles her. And then she pushes him back, and he hits this pillar, and he starts, bleeding after hitting the pillar. And then Walker bent, and this all of a sudden this kind of like pulse beating music starts playing, and Walker bends down to like try to ask Lamar if he's all right, and then realizes that he's dead, and then runs after one of the because they've all left after Walker has taken a minute to see if Battlestar is all right. So they all start running, just running away. And then one of the Flag Smashers, the same one who earlier in the episode said Captain America was his, he was a fan of, he grew up like idolizing him or whatever. He is chased by Walker, who's able to knock him down to the ground, put his foot on his chest. And as this Flag Smasher pleads for his life, it wasn't me, starts beating him with the hammer, with the shield into his chest, while all these onlookers view the scene and record and witness it. Now, let me discuss some of the things about this finale that I really like. I was not expecting, a lot of people on the internet were saying, Battlestar is going to die, Battlestar is going to die. I didn't expect it for two reasons. One, because Battlestar in the comics is alive and well. They usually don't prematurely kill off a character that's alive in the comics. In these shows like that, in the MCU, that's not a thing they usually do. But also because in the comics, what causes Walker to go over the edge and, act more aggressive and violent is the death of his parents, which the show, I don't believe, ever mentions existing, or, they're never, obviously he has to have parents if he's a human being, but they're never brought up here. So they changed that part of his origin to becoming U.S. agent. So I was really surprised by this development. I really liked, again, Battlestar. I think that his character's purpose probably wasn't that big of a deal because he's just there to be the backup / moral support for Walker. But I still, enjoyed the performance and whatnot. So I wasn't really that happy to see him die, but it is what it is. They always do that where they kill somebody off to advance someone else's character. It's just in this case, it was someone that's not traditionally killed off. That's why it took me by surprise. What was I going to say? Now, there was a person on Instagram, and I always stay away from these. I'll get into this later. I'll talk about it when we get to that part. So this is my favorite episode of the show. I've watched it probably 4 times at least. Just from start to finish, there's stuff I like. There's little character moments with Zemo. There's the fight scene with the Dora Milaje. There's the interaction between Walker and Battlestar about, the super soldier serum making you more of who you are. Because that was the theme of the show. Does it corrupt you or does it make you more of the person you were? And they have these different examples to, kind of go in either direction. And then obviously the conclusive fight and then, death, it was all just, it was really solid in my opinion. So let's get to episode 5. The episode starts with Walker after, I guess, immediately killing the Flag Smasher, going to sit in this warehouse or stand in this warehouse. And he's confronted by Bucky and Falcon, who seem to at first be convincing him to calm down and just admit what he's done. And they say to him, Falcon says you have to give up the shield, and that's when paranoia comes into play. And Walker says that you're trying to that's what this is all about, or he tries to make it seem as if they're really coming to him just to get the shield, as opposed to the fact that he murdered someone. In response to this, he's like, you don't want to do this. And then Bucky says, yeah, we do. And then they have this big battle that I think is one of the best fights in the entire franchise, probably. Because the thing I don't like about a lot of fights in this, and this is what is so, what people don't understand, this fight carries a lot of emotional weight because it's the two people who arguably in the present day were the closest to the first Captain America, now fighting what is essentially his corrupted counterpart. A lot of Marvel movies were criticized for having the good guy versus a bad version of themselves. So Iron Man versus Ironmonger, um, Iron Man versus Whiplash, Ant Man versus whoever that guy was from the first movie. So it with this, it's not that in the sense that while he is an, I guess, more antagonistic version of Steve in this sense, he still is not directly fighting Steve. So that fight was huge. The standout moments to me are when Falcon's wings get ripped off by Walker, and then also the scene where they finally get the shield away from him by breaking it off, by breaking his hand to get him to like lose his grip of it. I wish somebody would upload that fight in full on you. Like I hate having to keep going to back to that app to go and watch that. Now that fight's been building up for like 3 episodes, so that was really nice to see. Anyways, you have the scene where Sam leaves his wings with Torres, who is like a legacy character that the writers of the show admitted they would have done more with if it was 10 episodes instead of 6. Um, we have the scene where, again, I keep having to remind myself where certain stuff is, but we have the scene where Walker goes before the U.S. government, and they reveal that they're stripping him of being Captain America, and they say that they're not going to have a court martial of him because of his previous exemplary record, and they're basically like washing their hands of him. And I was saying online that one of the problems that people have with the military, at least the way it's depicted in the show, is and really in real life as well, is the idea that you're told that when you sign up, you're doing a service, and you're told that your service will be appreciated, that the sacrifices you make will not be in vain, because there are a lot of sacrifices that service members make. So when you do something that is considered a mistake by them, it seems very crazy that after they claim they care so much about you, they wash their hands with you and move on. But I want to like talk more about this because there was a clown on Instagram. I wasn't on this person's page. I didn't respond to this person. They wrote some stuff to me. I let them talk to themselves because I already talked about how I think a lot of interactions online are very toxic when they don't have to be. That people make speaking to them just unnecessarily venomous. So this person says to me after I write, it's messed up that they did this to Walker. That's how it works. You clearly never enlisted in the military. You go to basic and then on to learn discipline, integrity, competence, and reasoning. You are let go if you do something stupid. He was given a great responsibility. He effed up, called accountability and consequences, done. Well, first of all, that you clearly never enlisted in the military. Neither have 99% of Americans. Like you can go online. The actual number of Americans that volunteer to serve in the military is less than 2%. So like that, but it's funny because they're trying to make it seem like that's some shot to me. Like you clearly have never enlisted. Yeah, neither have most people, the overwhelming majority. But I want to like really just discuss this because I didn't want to bring real life discussions and get bogged down in the minutia of whether a government in a TV show and the government in real life would do the same thing. Because I just didn't take it that seriously. It was just a moment in a show, where I was like empathizing with one of the characters. This person says you are let go if you do something stupid. Well, I actually question this. What's stupid about killing a terrorist? Did the person who killed Osama bin Laden get let go of? Hell, Val, the character who's only in 2 scenes this whole show, she said it best. They're not upset that he killed a terrorist. They're upset he was filmed doing it. But then what would the solution to that be? Should he have made sure to confront this man somewhere where no one could see him? I'll tell you, people don't even think out the stuff they write. I have no reason to believe that if the US in real life actually hired itself a mascot and he publicly killed a terrorist, someone who was murdering various people to get whatever he wanted or was like a big ringleader of some group, I have no doubt the US would keep that person as part of their military personnel because they've done that before. And they got right to me that with great power comes great responsibility. First thing you learn in comics. Well, that's hilarious because most people who watch the MCU don't even read comics. Like nobody reads comics. That's what I think is funny. So I wanted to bring that up because I don't believe the military would get rid of one of its I guess mascot. Again, that's why I don't like comparing real life to a TV series where it's a lot more feasible for me to believe they might do something different. I don't enjoy getting it like it's fantasy. Let it, be its own thing. But I don't believe the military would get rid of Walker if he was a real life person who they put as their mascot that killed a terrorist. Because we've seen multiple examples where terrorists have been killed by Americans. How innocent people have been killed by Americans. They don't get rid of them. Like I'm supposed to believe the same country that bombs 90% the wrong that drone strikes 90% the wrong people is so concerned about accuracy and not doing something stupid. Yeah. You clearly never enlisted in the military. Yeah, why would I? So ungrateful bastards like you can still talk trash about me if I come online and say, "Hey, I was in the military." Go die in some banana war to be forgotten about by the same people who claim to care so much about me. No, the rest of episode 5 is okay. I'm not into it as much as the remaining the earlier parts of the show. When they have the scene where he's on the boat and he's trying to get all his stuff together and they're trying to fix it up and whatnot, him and Bucky. All that stuff is okay. It's just it's not as exciting to me as a lot of the stuff with Walker. Like even that post-credit scene where it's just him making the shield had me excited because I was looking to see what kind of outlier he would be in the series finale. What was I going to say? I also really enjoyed the second conversation between Isaiah and Sam, where we go a little bit more. You see that was what I really didn't like about his appearance episode 2, where it's so brief and quick, and it's nice that he opens up to him and tells him about what happened. So, and then that ending scene where he opens the case and we don't see the costume, but what's in there and the music is playing. And I remember the week between 5 and 6, there actually was like a toy leaked of Sam wearing the Captain America costume. Like people were posting that on Twitter. So you guys, it's funny because I remember when the future Trunks arc of Super was airing, before we knew that Goku Black in the show was going to get a form, we saw a card of him with with Super Saiyan hair that was colored like pink or red or whatever, like the rose form. That was the first time we saw it. It was revealed through merchandise, just like with the new Captain America outfit. So that's what that reminded me of, where merchandise ends up accidentally spoiling what's going to happen. Because that happened with Age of Ultron too, where people saw the lack of merchandise for Quicksilver and they figured that he was going to die in the movie. Man, that merchandise always finds a way to screw things up. I can probably name if I tried, probably 5 or 6 different examples where that happened, where merchandise revealed the plot or told us something about the story when the people who were behind the story wanted to keep it hush hush or under wraps. No, the main highlight of 5 is the fight at the beginning, and then it's not as interesting to me after that, other than the Senate hearing, where Walker says, "I am Captain America," and it shows that he's kind of going off the deep end a little bit more. So let's get into episode 6. It's a big final conclusive battle. They bring back the antagonist from episode 1. I'm forgetting his name, the one that Sam stopped. We finally see Sam in the Captain America costume, and he identifies himself as such. I really like the phone call that Bucky has with Carly, where he talks about how he's, you remember all the people that you killed, and that he's fought for things bigger than him and failed twice. And I'm assuming he's referring to Hydra and then also against Thanos. Again, that's just my assumption. You also have the scene where Walker confronts Carly about Lamar's death, and she's like says she's not trying to kill people that don't matter. And then Walker says, so Lamar's life didn't matter. And it goes a lot with that thing I was talking about where, like, I always hate when people when they idealize like different murderers online and whatnot, because they're basically saying you are a person of significance because you defiled the lives of other people to some infamous degree. Because a lot of those people actually do believe that the people they killed don't matter. Like, oh, we'll just drop some American service members in the water, whatever. Just another day in the hood. They really treat human life like it's, when people like write a show and they have characters die to like set up some drama in the movie. At least you can say, well, look, that's just a movie. No one's going to do that in real life. But in real life, they do the same thing where they treat people as if they're extras in a TV show. Just, you don't matter. All the casualties, doesn't matter, whatever. So there is a sentiment that most people's lives don't seem to be consequential or that big of a deal to a lot of other people, especially those in power. But going back to the conversation, he starts to wail on the Flag Smashers. We have the scene where the vehicle that is going over the cliff, and Walker decides to, instead of getting revenge on Carly, pick up the vehicle. And this actually irritated some people because they thought Walker was just going to now be a villain, and that was not the case. It didn't even make sense for me for him to be an antagonist. Like, why would someone who served the military repeatedly, well, it's fine, I'm doing this earlier than usual because I have something I have to do at 12. But it didn't make sense to me for why someone who served the military repeatedly, with distinction no less, now after one person he likes no longer being alive, I'm going to be evil now, So it was nice that went back to things that were. Didn't think you would come on this early. Yeah, this is not going to be a regular thing. At least I don't think it's just for today. Like, I don't think I'll do this on Monday, for example. I don't know, because I have to sell this thing with this place. And then when you get into the review, and if you care about spoilers, James, I think it's time you hightail it out of here. Because I don't want to be blamed for anyone saying, he told me what's in the plot, he ruined it. So, we're giving you another warning. They would show up at the description of the last episode. I like that Sharon had the mask, that same mask that Black Widow used in Winter Soldier. Because we haven't seen anybody else of prominence use that before. They have this scene where I don't remember his name, but it's the antagonist from episode 1 that Carly recruits in episode 5. He appears before Sharon and Carly after Sharon's revealed to be the power broker, and he's like, I'll tell the world who you are. And then Sharon says, I don't like blackmail, and just kills him. And then she gets shot by Carly after shooting the villain or the intent, whatever his name is. And then you have the fight between Carly and Sam, which is very underwhelming in my opinion. High is the show. I'm assuming Steve wants to write something else. I gotta wait. Yeah, I really liked it. I'd give it an 8 out of 10. But anyways, let me get back to this. So I thought the fight was lukewarm because he's just sticking his show up. I won't fight you. I won't fight you. And she's punching on it. And then she picks up a gun to like shoot him. And then Sharon just shoots her as well. And it's crazy when you think about it because Sharon's whole thing is I don't want people to know my secret identity as this mob boss gangster, basically. So she was able to keep her evil alternate self identity under wraps and for a supposedly also heroic reason kill off both of the people that found out. that all worked out great for her. The rest of the episode is not as interesting to me except for the parts with Isaiah, but you have the scene where Falcon in his, or I guess I'll just call him Sam, in his position as Cap goes and talks to the different politicians, and it's kind of like a milquetoast. It's just him speaking to them about how they need to be better in equality and all this stuff. I don't really pay attention to what do you like about it because I'm not really a fan of the characters though. Well, I can't make you a fan of the characters. I can't reach the screen and say you will now like Sam. But he goes to have this conversation with Isaiah, who we have a little brief scene where he's talking to him. A little brief scene, rather, where he watched Sam that night. It's while he's giving his little speech. And Isaiah admits that he's special, but then says he's not like Martin or Mandela or Malcolm or any of those people. And I'd say my favorite part of the episode comes up next, where Sam requests for him and his grandson to come with him somewhere. And then we go back to that same museum that had all the stuff of Captain America at the start of it. And then we find out that he was able to get a gold statue erected of Isaiah along with the description and some pictures of him. And he tells them that they'll never forget what you did, and he gives him a big hug. That's probably my favorite part of the episode, just because it's cathartic. Again, that this character that was really like just this background character that was really frustrated, who only has like 3 scenes in the whole show, gets some resolution in the show that's not even about him. Anyways, we see Walker in his U.S. agent getup, where it's the same outfit painted black. That was actually a point of contention by people, that his Captain America costume literally was his U.S. agent costume, except blue. So they made it its correct color. And then Val says that she'll be in touch with him, and him and his wife hug. And then we have the scene where Sam is like being greeted by all these different people, and then the episode ends. And we have the post-credit scene where Sharon gets pardoned for her involvement with Cap's illicit dealings or illegal dealings in Civil War. And after she gets her pardon, she gets on the phone and starts doing all her plotting. And that was the biggest surprise this show to me, to make a character, because Sharon in the comics was never a villain. Now in this show, it looks like they're setting her up to be an antagonist. Which I'm not opposed to. It's just surprising, because that was a character that always has been portrayed as a hero. It's kind of like with Nebula, where Nebula in the comics was always a villain, and the MCU, they have her become a hero after Guardians of the Galaxy 2. And then in the comics, she just is always a villain. My favorite Marvel characters in movies. Oh, let me review this one first. We can do a Q&A later. But yeah, I really enjoyed the show. I still would go back to my point of how I think the name of it is still a little incorrect, because they do a lot of good character work for Sam, but the stuff for Bucky after episode 2, I don't think it's kind of like shoved to the back burner. Where after episode 2, he gets little itty bitty nuggets of interactions with people that kind of like show his past and his background and stuff, but it still doesn't flesh him out nearly as much as they do with Falcon. Which again really sucks, because I like the character. I'd like to see them do more with him. And it's like even in a show where his name is in the title, I'm like, they still are you like he? I guess he has more screen time, so that's a good thing. But I wouldn't call any of this character development. Like Sam has an actual arc. He goes from being this person who gives the shield up because he doesn't feel he's fit to serve as Captain America, who, after seeing this appointed successor by the government, realizes that it's something he can do and should do, to honor the legacy of a man that he was friends with. So, yeah, the stuff with Bucky was underdeveloped for me. I like what's there, but I just don't think it's enough. I really liked Walker. I thought he was very interesting. He has the same problem I have with Mandarin and Shang-Chi, where in the comics, U.S. Agent is a Captain America villain. Like he's the dark counterpart of him, and they fight each other. And it's really nice to see Cap fight this dark version of himself. And it looks like we're not going to see that because Chris Evans doesn't want to renew his contract. So they're going to have him fight other people. I thought it was good deal. I'm not going to repeat myself 10 times because people don't want to rewind 2 minutes into before I said it was what I'm currently saying. The only thing I think they slipped up on was Carly. I think the show goes out of its way to try and like make her sympathetic, and it just to me doesn't work. I heard they made Bucky fall for a lot of dumb tough DTUFF. I don't know what tough is, so that's a new word for me. Again, when you have an antagonist that kills people that admits she would do it again, I don't think you should try to paint her as being redeeming. And I think what it ends up happening is a lot of people try to do this thing where since a character is young, they try to make it seem as if they're okay, you messed up. Yeah. Well, I don't know what they mean by dumb stuff. Like I want some examples. I always hate it when people speak in riddles. Like give me some examples of what you're talking about. Like I've given examples here of what I thought was nice or good. So I'd like some examples provided. That would be really cool. Like losing it to a table. Losing what to a table? I didn't see the episode where he fights a table. That's that's new to me. Yeah, Dio? He has a fight in every episode except for the first one. That'd be like if you said, "Oh man, remember when Obi-Wan had that fight in episode 3 of Star Wars? He has 3 fights in that movie. Which one?" We need some specifics. I'd like to know which fight you're referring to. I think we're pretty much done here as far as answering. Speaking to Dio, the only clip I've seen from the show is Baron Zemo dancing. That looks really dumb. I mean, it's part of well, whatever. It's part of him being in disguise. I didn't know he was supposed to be a proficient dancer in jail. There's like 13 fights in that star. No, there's not. There's like 5 or 6. I just know that Obi-Wan has the majority of them. I think that that one has the most fights out of any of them. So that's something. All right, let me answer Steve at this point because I know he's been waiting there with bated breath. My favorite Marvel characters and movies. Uh, I mean, I feel like Spider-Man's probably the most obvious answer. but the Maguire version, not the other two. I don't like them. I like the actors, but I don't really like because the problem with Amazing for me is that they went in trying to be as different from Raimi as possible. Like that's why they have the non-organic webbing. That's why they don't use Jameson or Harry or MJ. So that's and that's a big problem for me with that series. Like I had my best friend saying that that was his favorite version of the character in films. I said I can't get behind it. It doesn't have Jameson. Jameson is the third most recurring Spider-Man character out of all of them, and like to just adapt him out because you don't think you can get somebody as good as J.K. Simmons, I think is insane. And then we have Iron Boy Jr. Not even gonna get into him. We're gonna have to watch him swing webs for the next 10 years because the MCU doesn't do reboots. How exciting that's gonna be. Not in the Deadpool, but I was yeah, X-Men was the premier Marvel thing for me outside of Spider-Man. I used to have all their I used to read the comics. I remember I really liked Astonishing X-Men where it was Wolverine, Kitty, Beast, Cyclops, and Emma. That was one of my favorite runs. Came out in the early 2000s. I remember I really liked the Dark Phoenix saga. I was never that much into the movies because they have the same problem for me that the Transformers movies have, where there's too many characters and not enough time. Like I almost think X-Men probably would work better if it was just maybe 6 or 7 members for like 3 movies, and then you get rid of somebody and then keep it going that way, or you just do a show. The X-Men has one of the best villains ever made, Magneto. It means they were too cheap, not that they can't get a good actor. They recast Ed Norton in War Machine. There's hope. Well, they recast War Machine because Terrence Howard wanted too much damn money. He got paid the most out of anybody on the first Iron Man. Like, give me more. And according to Ed Norton, he didn't want to be involved with the franchise and be known for being, for having one specific role. Which, because of that, it means that the 2008 Hulk film to a lot of people is just skippable. Yeah, in that order, it was Dooku, Grievous, and then Anakin that he fought. Favorite DC movies? Uh, I mean, if I say The Dark Knight, that's too obvious. Yeah, I probably would say that, and then maybe I really like Batman Begins. So probably those two, and then maybe I thought Aquaman was good. I thought the Snyder Cut was all right. Yeah, so X Men First Class, Days of Futures Past, Apocalypse, one of the best X Men movies in my opinion. No, no, I'm not saying that I think the majority or all the movies are bad. I'm saying that I've always enjoyed the comics or the cartoons more because they have more time to develop multiple characters. And that a lot of I'll put it this way, I think the first one was good. I haven't seen it in years, so I might change my opinion if I go rewatch it. The second one I like. I don't remember liking the third one, but you know, the third one is when it starts feeling like Transformers, where there's so many characters and they can't do all of them. Like they get rid of Cyclops really early into it, which irritates me because Cyclops is always one of my favorite members. I know that, but I don't like the other X-Men movies. All right, well, I can't do anything about that. I can't make you like them. Oh yeah, DC whoops Marvel's behind when it comes to animation. I remember I really liked the Under the Red Hood film because the that was the first time we saw Jason Todd, the second Robin, in any animation. Before that, he was just this thing that the cartoon tried to gloss over, and like I remember I had to come online as a kid and find out there was a Robin in between Dick and Tim. What do you think about the speech of Falcon at the end of the last chapter? I was just indifferent to it. I preferred, like, his interactions with Bradley were more interesting to me. Yeah, I'd say out of the MCU films, I probably like I like Iron Man, all three of the Captain America, like just the ones I like the most. Probably Guardians of the Galaxy, the first one, the second one. It's a shame it takes 6 years to get a third one because they got rid of James Gunn and he lost all his progress. Yeah, I didn't see that. Wasn't that released on the internet? No, Fox's X-Men series is the most. It's like a telltale chapter of just scrapped movies. Like we were supposed to get an X-Men Origins Magneto, an X-Men Origins Gambit. None of it ever came out. And then that Dark Phoenix movie was supposed to be the start of a new trilogy, and then they just threw it out. Under the Red Hood is the most important animated movie from DC. I mean, I guess. I'm just saying I really liked that film because it was them actually trying to do some stuff that was in comics that they didn't do in TV shows. I heard the speech got made by a 4-year-old. Maybe. They have those child writers. Let's see what else is here. Yeah, the only thing I really say about the show at this point probably is I made a video where I was talking about legacy characters and how one of the problems I had with Falcon and also with Bucky becoming Captain America in the comics was that it was never going to last. But with the MCU, it looks like they might actually do that where they have Falcon as Captain America from now on. So it is what it is. X-Men, Blade, Elektra, Daredevil, and Punisher started it all. So ask me if I don't like X-Men. I used to love X-Men. That was the premier Marvel team before the Avengers stuff came out. Like go back to the early 2000s, nobody talked about Avengers. It was X-Men and Justice League that were the like teams that people would discuss because they had cartoons and video games and different stuff. No, that's the whole reason the MCU is the way it is because Kevin Feige realized that since X-Men, Spider-Man, and Fantastic Four had their rights owned by separate companies, they still had the rights to the core members of the Avengers. That's why the MCU is centered around that team so much. They had all the B-list characters nobody wanted to watch a movie about. That should tell you something. Like all the major teams and characters were taken by studios. So like the MCU is built on B-list characters now being considered great and amazing and important. Because I remember like when I was a kid, nobody talked about Captain America other than when he was in the video game or when he died. It was like 2008, 2007. Now, that was crazy. They were like, "Oh my God, Cap is dead." Supposed to be in what movie? Well, Dio, the film's plot was recycled into First Class. So First Class is to some extent that movie with a different name. Like they admitted that they recycled its plot for that. I like Fantastic Four. I don't think the films are good, but I like the team. And they have some of the most iconic villains: Galactus, Doctor Doom, and for a time they were the highest selling Marvel comic before Spider-Man showed up. So they have a lot of merit. They didn't even market the games really as Avengers. No, like with Marvel Ultimate Alliance, that was just Marvel. And then if you would put all the characters from Avengers on a team, they would say, "Oh, it's the Avengers." No, X-Men Origins was not supposed to just it was supposed to be a series of prequel films about X-Men characters. And Wolverine was supposed to be the first one because he's the most popular X-Men character. They had 1 month where he appeared in like 20 books. It was crazy. But anyways, they canceled that and then put the plot in another movie. Now, James, you can go look online. They have a whole list of movies they want to make. They want to do a prequel. Let me try to remember. There's so much stuff they had. It was a bunch of crap. No, I remember Ultimate Alliance. I used to play that with my dad. I remember that one level where where like it's you against Modoc, and you have to answer these trivia questions, and if you get them right, he says you cheated, and then if you get them wrong, he's like, "Oh, you're dumb." Yeah, I didn't like the second one as much. I did like that they let you play as some of the villains, like Venom and Green Goblin. So, anyway, I think that's all I've got to say. I appreciate those who have shown up. I do have something I have to do in like an hour or so, so I'm trying to make sure we answer all this stuff that's being asked here. Uh, I didn't even expect to do a full review of the show. I just didn't. I don't like reviews that are as long as the content itself. So there's a season of a show that came out that was 4 hours together. If you pull all the episodes and watch them back to back, and this group of guys made a review that's 10 hours long. So I hate that so much. I had Xbox 360, not anymore. Yeah, I'd say probably they really love doing that. They love making villains that were somebody else's enemy, another person's enemy. They're gonna have Shang-Chi fight Iron Man's arch enemy. That's crazy. Oh, this one guy made a video talking about a movie, a review, right? And the review was 80 minutes. And these guys, it was six of them, got together and did a stream on his 80-minute video that was 11 hours. And that, like, imagine making a video that's 80 minutes and somebody and their friends take 11 hours to respond to your 80-minute video. How are you supposed to respond to them unless you do a 20-hour stream? No, people online are crazy. They don't even care. They do the most insane things. We believe in a civilized discussion. That's why we're going to make videos so goddamn long that no reasonable person who has time on their hands will be able to talk about this. Not that much. Responding to Steve. Yeah, I was never into DC as much as Marvel. Like outside of the what's the way of saying it? Outside of the new 52, I never really read DC that often. I know with DC they had the Court of Owls. That was the Batman story, and then they had the what's the other one? They had the Jeff Johns running Aquaman. I really like that because it was like self-deprecating. It was it actually made him seem kind of threatening in a way because that character a lot of times is seen as a joke. So it was nice that one of the writers took him seriously. No, it sucks reading the earlier Avengers issues because Quicksilver joins during their second year, and like when you get an attachment to the character, and then know that the MCU just threw him out like he was yesterday's trash after one movie, it's all the more frustrating. And we're gonna do a romance origin James. We're gonna show all the different chicks he tried to talk to and people harassing him on the computer. I saw that guy's comment where he was talking about you're awkward, you have bad hair. I'm like, thank you, straight man. That is totally what someone who is attracted to women would say to another man. Yeah. What have you been doing in the man? This is really a Q&A. They ask me more questions here than on a job interview. Like they'll ask you how soon can you work? Do you have any references? Jesus Christ. Now I saw that guy's comment, and then you gonna heart the one where he said, "I thought you were gay." Yeah, I was like, "What?" It makes complete sense for a supposedly homosexual man to be complaining about not getting a date with a woman. That's really logical. They love doing that. And when I do the video, the why being straight is a bad thing video, I'm gonna mention how you would never see someone tell makes total sense. Yeah, you would never see someone tell a gay man, let's say a gay man did a video, he was like, "No man likes me." You would never see someone tell him, "Oh, you must be straight because other men are attracted to you." It's only with straight men that you have to be a different orientation. Yeah, this person who's never, and that's why it really is insane to me because they're so desperate to make sense of this screwed up situation. They have to like create fan fiction. Like all the men who get turned down over and over, they're all gay. All these chicks that don't even speak to them hardly are able to tell what their sexuality is because they watched them in a video or they spoke to them one time. Oh my god. Bro. Bro. Ugh. No, this person on the computer knows your sexuality better than you. That's why I said I'm so tired of the internet. It's just everyone on here acts like they're such an expert on someone else. It's really insane. I know you're straight. I know you're not. It's so aggravating. But again, the videos does a better job of articulating my issue with the way these people act than if I just do a stream on it. Let's see what else is here. Anyways, I'm glad you enjoyed this. I really like the show. I don't like it as much as WandaVision, but I like it. So thanks for appearing. I'll stream again on Monday, and have a good day.